Hi guys, welcome back to the second episode of the second season of Pick Up the Mic. We're joined again today by myself, Jeffrey and Sam. So if you guys would want to, say a quick hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back with another episode. As you can tell, we're still enjoying this, and still, I guess, not used to showing our faces. But I'm sure you guys probably aren't used to seeing them as well. But we live and we learn, and we like new things. So that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, hopefully we haven't scared off too many of our regular listeners by showing our faces. Because I mean, if I had to see my face, I probably wouldn't. Probably wouldn't. But you can still tune in on the podcast site, so on Spotify, if you don't want to see us, which is perfectly acceptable. But hi and welcome back, everyone, as well.
Oh, so true. I wouldn't if I could see you, Sam. Just kidding.
Wait.
Anyways, today we're joined by Nkem. I'm not going to introduce you. So do you just want to tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you're doing? Just, introduce yourself to the listeners.
As I was introduced, my name is Nkem. I'm currently 21 years old, doing my master's at De Montfort University in Leicester. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I only just started in February. So I'm just beginning my second semester. This time last year, when I had just graduated doing biomedical science, I didn't actually know what direction I wanted to do. So I decided I was going to continue on doing a general, so just biomed, as opposed to a specialized master's course, in the hopes that I can try and find my fittings in the world, try and figure out what direction I wanted to go in. And now that I've done that, I'm very happy I've done so. I'm pretty much leaning towards biotechnology, considering doing a PhD, but I'm just still keeping my options open. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thanks for that, Nkem. And we were wondering what has motivated you to study a STEM subject?
So luckily for me, I actually went to an all-girls school. So the school did very much promote STEM to us as obviously girls, more so technology. So I did have a very strong background in computer science, so programming and things like that. But I did very much also enjoy biology. So when I did get to this master's level, as I previously said, because I'm now leaning towards biotech, it kind of does just blend the two together. I feel like my school was a big part of that. But even outside of school, I just always knew that I did like science-based things. But I feel like the outcome of my choices, so entering a STEM subject, may potentially have been different if I didn't have the teachers encouraging us, even to the point where we got to go to Google headquarters in San Francisco, Facebook headquarters. They really did a lot to encourage us into STEM.
It's amazing. And I can tell that you've, as you were saying, the biggest impact you said is about going to an all-girls school. And so I was just wondering what sort of environment was that like when they obviously, how do you think it would be different? Do you think if you went to a unisex school, it would be more towards the men that they would cater those things to, and then to the women to something else? And so by going to an all-girls school, you managed to actually get people saying, we've got to do this for both, or for what's there, which actually gave you a bigger foothold. Would you say that's the reason why?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I do feel like because of the absence of males in the school, and my school was a grammar school, so they do very much focus on performance and outcomes, and specifically what unis you go to, and more so what subjects you do in uni, because that's a better reflection on them. So obviously, because it's just girls, they only have girls to focus on to get to, for example, medicine or biomedical science or engineering or accountants, just those kind of things. So I feel like going to an all-girls school did definitely improve my chances of entering STEM. I don't know if the statistics are the same now, but when I was in school, I was aware of a statistic that girls who go to an all-girls school do actually tend to perform better, whereas boys who go to mixed schools perform better than boys who go to all boys schools. So obviously for me, it meant that I was in the right environment for myself. Obviously all girls schools won't be the right environment for all girls, but for me, I would say I definitely benefited from it. I have gotten loads of messages on my Instagram where I do science communication and promote women in STEM. I always get messages from girls who are usually from mixed schools saying that their schools have a limitation on the amount of people who are allowed to go into STEM subjects. And it's like they constantly see boys are being picked, even though their achievements might not be the same as the girls, which obviously just highlights the disparity in the genders in STEM.
Such a shame. And I think, you know, like when there's someone saying like, those people over there, they're doing this role, you've got your own role to do, it makes things so much more difficult if you want to go into that, because, you know, like when you wanted to go into it, obviously you had like a load of people around you that were supportive and in the same situation. And, you know, it's a shame that it takes an all-girls school to say like, look at the fact that there's so much potential being wasted by people just assuming that it's a man's industry. And so hopefully, I don't know if you've got any plans to, you know, start something that would correct that. If you've any ideas, obviously I don't want to pressurize you to answer that, but like, there's probably a lot that can be done.
Yeah, so I thought of starting off small. So that's why I started the Instagram page that I run, just being a role model for young girls, especially as a biracial person myself. There's not much representation of us, because when you even think about it, the idea of mixed race people is still quite new. It's not very frequent in older generations. So already we're not represented in STEM, and especially being a woman in STEM, again, not much representation. So yeah, starting off with just this. And then as I grow, I should hope to be able to speak at some events, do workshops in schools, just show girls that there's someone who's, you know, kind of cool like you. It's not just like an odd thing, like, or maybe certain types of girls do STEM. It's like girls can do STEM and still enjoy makeup, still enjoy going out, you know, those kind of things, like regular girl things. So yeah, at the moment, I do have big plans. Just hope to execute soon.
Yeah, it's like you're saying about that. That's A, that's amazing, and B, it's like you sort of picked up another issue, and it's the culture that's around these things. And so when there's a big culture of, you know, like if you enter this company, it's a big lad culture, it's a big, you know, like there's no, you know, emotion or like this sort of emotional communication that can be had. But as a psychologist, a lot of my work revolves around emotions, and there's a lot more women in psychology, and for, you know, STEM subjects, it's less emotional, but then I don't think it means that it should be devoid of emotion at all. And I think that's just the fact that the majority of people that have been in it just haven't sort of expressed themselves in that way. And I think there's a massive sort of a culture change that I know, because I've got people that are I've got friends that are, they do stuff like engineering, civil engineering, and they've come in their work placements, and it's just all men and then them, and then it's very obvious that they're different. It's not like I can just fit in easily. It's like it gets said, like not even like discreetly, just like, oh, you're different because of this, or you're different because of that. They sort of pick up on the small things, and it's sort of getting rid of those that would help as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to add on to what you were saying, Sam, and Kem, what I thought was really good that you raised was the idea of, you know, how the education system sort of helped you to find this interest, because I know, especially, so I did physics as an A-level, and I think on our physics course, so I was at a boys and girls school, and in sixth form, I think in our physics class, there was only one girl. Whereas to like biology and chemistry had a lot more, and that was one of the things that actually was even discussed in. We had like a big like sixth form assembly, and it was one of the things raised of the idea of there is a gap when it comes to STEM, and you know there's been a lot of reports about it in the news and discussions about it that have said, you know, there is a gap when it comes to both men and women in STEM. And obviously there are other things like race that plays a part in that as well, but specifically focusing on, you know, the attainment gap between men and women in STEM, even with salaries, they've said as well, within STEM industries, there is a huge gap between how much a man or a woman will get paid within a STEM industry. And there are those limitations of, you know, people have said, if you look at most of the CEOs of these big companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, you know, I could name loads. A lot of them are men. and there isn't a lot of representation there. So I think, like Sam said, that the things that you're doing are amazing, and yeah, you definitely are an inspiration to the next generation, because you're showing your experience, and I think that's the realest thing that anyone could do. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I think you are right, and yeah, one of the things that we've just spoken about was the idea of what who's like representation. So I guess asking everyone on the call. I know we've all, like I said, we've all come from different walks of life. So I just wanted to know for you guys, because like I said, there was only one girl in my physics class, and both biology and chemistry had a lot more girls on that class than it did boys. So I just wanted to know if that was the experience for you guys, if you think there's any other factors that play a part in that. I just wanted to know what you guys think.
So coming to uni, obviously now leaving my all-girls school environment, I've encountered a lot of even STEM and non-STEM men constantly reminding me, oh, biology is a woman's science. Like, men don't go into biology. But if you just go back a few hundred years ago, it was a male-dominated field. It's like it was just for intelligent people. But now that loads of women are starting to get into biology, it's now seen as lesser than. It's almost like anywhere women populate is not a valued subject. It's only where men populate that are a valued subject. But then it's like that kind of behavior further discourages women. It's like women who might be considering going into engineering or computer science or physics or even chemistry is kind of on its way to being a female subject. It's like it can make them feel uncomfortable in those kind of environments. And you can say, yeah, they can ignore it. But when you're actually in those situations where it's just full of men or people who don't look like you, people you don't necessarily relate to, that's not a comfortable work environment. It will put people off.
No, definitely. I think you're right. And I think it is one of those things that does need to stop, because there is this whole thing of, certain, especially, I think, like you said, it's not even just within STEM at this point. It's within loads of different subjects. Some subjects, even not only just the representation of men and women. There's representation of how much money you'll get out of it. So things that are a bit more on the creative side. So like the arts. So I mean, literally art or drama or design. They're seen as more of a, I don't know. It's more of like basically to make it takes so much, and it's so risky, you shouldn't do it. Whereas other things that like accounting or specializing in maths or the sciences for an A level is seen as something that's better. And I think, like you said, the history of it, and I think that literally even that could be an episode in itself. The history of it, of how it's changed over the last couple of 100 years is very key, because when you look back at it, a lot of influential people that have made huge changes in not only non-STEM fields but within STEM as well. You've got people like Mary Curie that's done that did a lot of scientific work, and that scientific work is still being used in our world today. I think it was last year. I think the person who took the image of the black hole. I'm pretty sure she was a female scientist at NASA. Even films like Hidden Figures showed that the first first mission to the moon with Apollo 13, I think it was. That had 3 black women on there, and it was one of those things where before the film, and I'm pretty sure we discussed it before the film, I had no idea that was a thing. And that should be something that should definitely be. I feel like, especially within America, it should definitely be encouraged. So yeah, I think you are right. There are not I could list loads like I'd say Mary Curie again. Mary Seagal is another one as well that did influential work. And I know, and I guess this is a bit of a shout out, but I know. Comedy Central, they have one in America that they did. I don't know if they're still doing it, called Drunk History. But I know they're doing one in the UK. Specifically, they were doing it on black influential important people within black history, and they did do an episode on Mary Seagal, and even just learning her whole story was just so inspirational. The fact that I'm not sure if anyone knew this or didn't know this, but the fact that she wanted to be a nurse within the Crimean War, and they were just like, no, you can't go there, you can't do it. She was just like, you know what, I don't care. She went there, she set up amazing set up like her own hospital. She did it near the battlefield. She was treating soldiers from both sides, I believe. But yeah, these are things that can inspire another generation. And it seems there's less of a focus on, using these historical figures that have been influential, who have, given hope to, people when they were alive. They most surely inspired people around them. And even to this day, they still do, but they're not as widely known about as other ones. And I think you're definitely right. There is this shift of a focus. And I think, lastly, that there's not an emphasis on it. It sort of seems like people are saying, if girls don't want to do STEM, girls don't want to do STEM. It's just one of those things where actually, you can't just take a back seat, or you can't just, leave it to someone else to sort out. No, you need to show these young people that, you might be interested in like social media or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, but do you want to know how it works? Do you want to know how the algorithm works or how the technology works behind it? You like driving? Do you want to know how the car works or things like that? You like makeup? Do you want to know about the I think there is an Instagrammer. I'm not sure. I think my sister told me about it. But there was either an Instagrammer or YouTuber who's like what is her role? I've forgotten. But she basically she studies and she basically creates cosmetics. But she as a blogger speaks about the chemical components within it, and speaks about how these components work and what they do to the skin and the benefits and the harms that they can have. So even things like that, it's combining both things. If someone likes fashion or likes designing clothes and they want to learn, what are the chemical components within this? How does plastic affect the environment once I throw away my plastic t-shirt or my plastic bag? Things like that I think are definitely super key. So yeah, thank you guys for raising that.
Another point, sorry, just before we finish this, what Kem was saying about how it was very male dominated back hundreds of years ago. That's also just because there was no opportunities for women. It was literally just because women have to grow up, get married at this age, have kids, stay at home, look after the kids, cook the food, keep the house running. Where was the opportunity for them to be able to do any of the stuff that we can do today? And even now that there is more opportunities for women, there's so much prejudice that comes along with it. So, that's just something that I just wanted to mention there.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Kem. And I think it's really clear to see that you're very passionate and motivated about STEM. So I know some of our listeners may not know this about you, but you are a COVID research lab technician. So I guess the last year has been difficult for everyone, and I can imagine, especially for you, it must have been a very busy time with the research that you were doing. But overall, we just wanted to know, how have you found the experience? Has it been something that you've enjoyed? Do you feel like you've developed as a person because of it? Have you learned new skills, things like that, or do you think it's something that anyone who's thinking about being a researcher should think about doing? We wanted to know your opinion.
So as I previously did mention, when I finished my undergrad, I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I didn't do a placement year. So if you're listening to this and trying to decide whether or not to do a placement year, I recommend doing it. You need the experience, even if it's not necessarily experience, but more so to help yourself understand what you do and don't like. Because as I will explain later on, what you like in theory isn't necessarily what you actually like in practicality when it comes to the actual real working world. So yeah, I'd now finished my 3 years of uni, not really any experience outside of lab work, part of my course. I was waiting for my master's to start, but again, they had kept pushing it back because of COVID. So yeah, eventually I now found this job, and I have to be honest, guys, it was actually the worst interview I've ever done. They were asking me questions like, how do you do this scientific thing and this and that? It just got to a point. I just said, I'm sorry, I don't know that. But I can look it up if I needed to. I can check my notes, things like that. I came away from the call, my friends had just so happened to have been in the room. And I literally was just like, guys, that was the worst thing ever. Well, I haven't got the job, on to the next one. And literally same day, they told me they'd let me know the next day. Within 2 hours, they emailed me back and they offered me the job. From that experience, and then obviously talking to them when I started, I found that they're not looking for people who know everything. It's not possible to know everything. And if you do, you're probably a bit odd anyways. Like, it's really not a thing. They're more so interested in finding people who can admit when they don't know things. They know where to look. You're being self-sufficient. You're going to find out information when you don't know these things. Because especially when it comes to COVID samples and testing and things like that, they don't want someone who thinks, yeah, I'm probably doing it right, let me just go and do this. They want someone who can stand back and say, do you know what, I don't know that, but before I do it, let me check it, let me run it by you. But yeah, in general, I've really enjoyed my experience. My first week there, though, it felt so horrible. I felt like I knew nothing. It's like uni almost, obviously it did prepare me, but it's very different. Like, the experiments you do in uni, they're very budget. But when it comes to something as big as COVID, where governments are giving these labs millions of pounds for funding, the equipment is very much different. But yeah, I'm so happy I've had this experience. I'm actually doing it alongside doing my master's. I'm juggling full-time work and full-time uni, as well as the cycle on Instagram. So it is a lot. But yeah, I'm having the time of my life. And I'm actually, I took a few weeks off so I could do my exams and coursework, but I'm actually resuming tomorrow. And I'm very much excited to go back. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's really good because, like, I guess there's a few key things that I think our listeners can definitely find very informative. So the first thing you said about, especially, not necessarily when you came into that interview, you didn't feel completely prepared. I think a lot of students, especially in the last year, can understand that because obviously, jobs have been harder to get. But I think it was really good that you said, in the interview, you didn't lie. You were completely honest. You were upfront, and you told you said, I don't know it, but I'm more than willing to learn. And I think that's a key thing. Our previous episode was talking about what's next after university, and I think that's a key thing that people should take into account. If you do go into an interview and you don't understand the question or you don't know how to do a certain thing, preferably don't lie so you can just get the job. Just be honest and open, because like you said, the truth, especially if it's a graduate job, a lot of people won't have that experience from the get-go. And it's just something that you will gain as you go along. So I think that's definitely like a key thing for our listeners to take home with them today.
Just add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, these people are professors. They've been in this industry for many years. So if you do go to your interview and you are basically just waffling, they know you don't know it. They can see right through your waffle. There's literally no point trying to pull the wool over their eyes. They have how many 10 plus years experience over, even if they just had 5, it's 5 years ahead of you. They know that you don't know what you're talking about. So I think honesty genuinely is the best policy in these situations.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think Nanushka, you wanted to say something. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was gonna add to that what you were saying again about being honest in your interview. Basically, all your employer wants is for you to show that you're willing to learn. You don't need to know everything. That's even what I found in my job, because I'm also a research technician, but I'm at Brunel. I'm not doing anything with COVID. But I had absolutely no experience in what I'm doing now. But it was the fact that I'd known some of the stuff in theory, but as you said, everything is completely different in theory and in practice, because, in practice, everything goes wrong in science because it's science. But you go into it knowing that. But yeah, because I showed a willingness to learn, that's what they wanted. Because you're never going to know everything in a job. How can you? You go with the experience you have, and you have to be able to apply it. It's just all all about transferable skills and everything. So, yeah. And again, what you were saying about they know when you're lying. They really do know when you're lying. They know. They just know. Because even if so someone I know who is managing some students, they're not a professor. They've not been working in their job for long. They've only been there for a few years, and they know when the students that they're managing, when they're lying and when they're waffling and pretending that they've done whatever they said that they've done. So then we were sitting and talking, and they were saying to me, if I can tell when these people are not telling me the truth, imagine the manager. imagine, the project instructor, she or he is obviously going to know if we're telling lies, they just know, basically. So yeah, no, really good points.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think we can all say, if anyone's listening and they want one key takeaway, it's don't lie in the interview, and you'll do just fine. Just be completely honest. And yeah, I think, like you guys said, just being honest from the get-go is just the best thing. But the other thing I was going to say is that I really liked how you've said that you've learned things, and Anushka as well. You've both said that you started this job and you didn't know certain things, and you've now either you've done it or you're doing it, and you've come out with skills that you wouldn't have known or done from the get-go. So I think and it sort of links to the idea of, that Kem was talking about before, of this idea of placement year. And I think that's a key thing to add, because even if you don't have the experience beforehand, whatever job you apply for will give you that experience. And it's the whole idea of, I think the best piece of advice I was ever given about whether it was a placement, a job, was make the most of it. Like, come out of it and be like, I went in not knowing, I don't know, like how to use a certain software or how to do a certain technique in the lab. But I can now, I've now come out of that job, or I'm now doing that job, and I can do this technique and 5 others. Like, I have a wide range of choices. They asked me to do one specific thing. For example, as an environmental science student, they might say, Jeffrey, do some soil analysis, or, tell us about, can you do an analysis on this certain species? And I can be like, well, I can give you 5 different ways you want it. But yeah, things like that. Just making sure that when you do these experiences, don't limit yourself. Don't think, it's not in my... I understand that, sometimes when you do try and do these extra things, it can add extra responsibility, but don't let your job description limit you. Don't let whatever's in your job description be the thing that stops you from going above and beyond what you want to do. But yeah, I think those are some key points for anyone listening to take home, especially, at this time where you might be thinking of either moving to a new job, or, you've just graduated and you're looking for jobs. I really recommend that you do take some of these lessons home with you. So yeah, but thank you guys for your responses.
I was just going to add to that obviously I can only speak from a biomed point of view, but I do know a lot of placements that are based in labs. They even offer a rotation system. So in that instance, you try different types of careers in the lab. So for example, you might like microbiology in uni, but you get to lab and you realize you hate it, and you actually like, I don't know, biochemistry more. Is that I do very much recommend you doing a placement year, because obviously, like I said, I'm doing my degree in De Montfort, but I'm doing this COVID research in Uni of Leicester. Even so, different labs have different kind of obviously the base rules are the same, but other things may be slightly different. And I just feel like it has really just changed my whole point. Like, before working this, I literally said, me in a lab, never, it's not happening. I don't want that. Going into academia only. But now it's like, I don't mind. I could see that happening. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
So thanks, Kem. Those are some really, really good points, Jeffrey as well. So we've touched upon women in STEM and, what motivated you to study STEM and everything. But what do you think are some of the barriers that women can face when they're, trying to apply and enter the field of STEM?
So I think from the jump, it starts from a young age. So it's like, when you ask young children, oh, what do you want to be? It's like, from TV shows, they get their ideas from their parents, from people they see, whether they know them personally or not. And it's like, you'll see the boys wanting to be doctors or policemen, or even fire marshals, things like that. And then girls just want to be princesses. Like, that's very much okay. But I just feel like from a young age, it's almost like women are programmed to be non-STEM majors. And then as they grow up, they're hearing things like, oh, biology, that's a woman's subject. Even then, it's like, you might feel encouraged to go into biology because there's more women there. Then a small part of you makes you feel like, oh, that doesn't sound like it's good. Like, they say it in a negative way. Let's say, again, like I previously said, you want to go into physics, but the kind of field you're going to go into every day for, let's say, 50 years that you're working. It's in a field full of people you don't relate to. It's not comfortable. And I feel like since making my Instagram, a lot of girls have messaged me, especially from other countries where they literally just have no ability to enter STEM whatsoever. They get very frustrated. And I do very much understand and appreciate that I'm in a privileged position to have not had those obstacles and only faced the patriarchy and misogyny when I did get to uni. So it was beyond my main developmental years. And then for a lot of girls, I even hear them talk about the pay gap. It's not worth it. I'm working twice as hard and getting paid chicken change, basically. It's like, when you're thinking about jobs, as much as people say follow your passion, they do also say, let me look at Glassdoor, let me look at how much the wages are. If you're seeing that what you're doing is not worth a living wage, like a comfortable living wage for you, it's not something you're going to want to chase. So I do feel like in general, women do face a lot of problems and obstacles entering their chosen fields, ranging from pay, as Jeffrey earlier mentioned, all the way down to just sly little remarks. I even see it in some workshops I've done in the past where, let's say there's a group, it's in a mixed school, they're working on a project together. A girl will say a very valid suggestion or contribution, but let's say it's a group of boys and just one girl, her idea, I constantly see it being shot down. It's kind of disregarded, like, she's a girl, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But it's like, as an older person, you might identify that was a really good idea, but because them being age mates and them seeing the girl as inferior or not knowing as much, they just shoot it down. And I feel like a lot of the time they don't actually realize they're doing it. It's kind of like a subconscious thing. A lot of boys don't realize they're just dismissing women. So yeah,
that's so true. Because you were saying that, and I was just thinking that's actually happened so much. Like, so many people I know, they, like, it's literally what you said. They would have the exact same idea as someone else. Like a woman would have the same idea as a man, but it would only be acknowledged by the guy. Like, everyone would be like, oh my God, yeah, that's such a good idea. But it's like, she said it first. It's what you're saying now, that's, like Jeffrey said before, is like a whole topic in itself. But, can't get into that now. No, but yeah, you made some very, very good points.
Yeah, I think this has definitely been a powerful discussion, guys. So I think thank you very much, everyone, for all your answers. I think this is definitely raised, not only because I think it's really nice how we've raised like information and giving people tips, not only on like interview prep, but we've also spoken about like following your passion as well, the idea of women in STEM. So yeah, even though we only had like one topic, I really like that we have like sort of like gone in all these directions. So that's really cool. But I guess, Kem, the next question we'd like to ask you is, there might be some people who are in the same position you were last year, or who might be in the same position you are right now. And we just want to know, for anyone that's thinking of applying to work in research, whether that's after graduation, as a summer placement, or as a year placement, essentially, what advice would you give to them? What's something that, whether it's something that you would have liked to have known when you were applying, or whether it's something that you think, for the student who's just finished uni, or they just finished their year, they're going to graduate, or they're going to go to second or third year, or they're thinking about doing a placement year, what would be the bits of advice? You can give one, or you can give more than one if you'd like. But what would be the advice that you would give to them?
So I would definitely, again, re-emphasize that experience is the most important thing that you can get. Experience obviously lets you know as a person what you do and don't want to do, as I previously explained, but it also helps you get your foot in the door. And I feel like with every career path, whether STEM or arts, it is really important setting that foundation. I feel like that is the hardest part. And once you get one job, whether it's for just a month or a few months or even a few years, you have transferable skills. So even if you want to pack up and go to a different industry within your field, it's like you have the skills to go there. So, for example, if you've worked in a lab doing microbiology, it's the same lab processes and rules and things like that in a biochemistry lab or in a cancer biology research unit. It's similar things. There's a lot of transferable skills there. For anyone who was in my position where I didn't actually know what I wanted to do, you always hear those things, just follow your passion. But when you don't know your passion, it's a very frustrating thing to hear, because if I knew, I would know what I'd be doing, right? It's very tedious and very cliche, but it will come to you. I feel like we fail to remember that we are young, whether you're in your late teens, early 20s, mid-20s, even late 20s. That's so young in the grand scheme of things. Like, your working life has just started. It's like, these are the points you're allowed to make your mistakes. It's like, go ahead and make that big risk, whether it's jumping to a job that you think, I don't know if I'm going to like it, I don't know if I'm going to do well, because it's okay to make those mistakes. I don't think it's as easy to make those mistakes when you have a mortgage and a partner and children to raise. So I would just say, get your experience, being my first piece of advice, and to be comfortable in taking risks. It's like, even the more successful people, if you hear them speak, they do say the biggest risk takers tend to be the more successful people. But obviously, exercise caution when you do make those decisions.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I think, I think that's a perfect note to end this question on, of taking risks. Because I think, like you said, you never know. The worst that can happen is it doesn't work out. And obviously, like you said, caution is needed. I'm not saying anyone who's on this Bitcoin craze or cryptocurrency, invest loads of money. You didn't hear that from me. But what I'm trying to say is, I think you're right, that there is a need to go and take risks sometimes. Don't always let fear hold you back. Sometimes, the worst you can get, even when it, comes to job applications, the worst that you can get is just a no. And obviously, sometimes it can hurt to repeatedly, be rejected from jobs or things like that. But, at the end of the day, you'll come out with, if you get information about why you didn't get the job and things like that, you can then move on and take that advice on and work on your CV and your interview prep. So, yeah, I think, I've got nothing more to add to that. I think that's a perfect way to end it.
Also, I was going to add to that as well. That's really, really well said, Jeffrey. But, myself, I've learned in life that actually sometimes when you get rejected, when you lose, you actually end up getting what you want. And so it's when, you can take the risk, and if you get rejected, or if it turns you in a completely different direction, it can actually be what you needed in life, and you just didn't know it. And sometimes life can just force you down a way that you actually are better off going. And so when you could think that something's actually a defeat, instead of you trying to fight this, whatever it is, it's a job application, it's whatever. When there's a defeat, sometimes it actually does you better not to have won. Sometimes it's better to lose and then move on to the other thing. So just keep that in mind. But also, I just made a post on the Pick Up the Mic LinkedIn page, so people check that out, because Jeffrey posts a lot. I'm just about to start posting as well. So, but it's your future, your turning points in life, these decisions you make where you progress from one place to the next place, this sort of this doorway in your life. These are the perfect opportunities to take to then move into different areas of life and you can pretty much choose anything. You've got nothing to lose, like Jeffrey said. You get rejection, you get whatever, but this is when you can send out all your feelers and try whatever, because there's nothing holding you back when you're at that place. You can just go wherever you want. And when you progress from one place to another place in life, it's just the perfect opportunity to be an adventurer and take yourself wherever you need to go. But yeah, it's just something to consider that I've been thinking about.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
Funnily enough, just going off of what Sam said, I actually did apply for a PhD straight from undergrad for cancer biology in Uni of Leicester, and they did reject me. Obviously, at the time, I was kind of like, me, rejection, why? I had emailed them. I think that is a really good thing. When you do get rejected, I do recommend emailing them, obviously very politely asking why you got rejected so that you can take it into account for your next round of applications. But anyways, they didn't respond. But aside from that, I'm happy that happened, because now I'm doing my master's in still biomed. Again, with an open mind, I realized I don't mind cancer biology. I could still potentially go into that, but the specifics of the PhD wasn't for me. So what they were going to do with the research in cancer biology wasn't at all in my field. But obviously at that moment, I'm kind of grasping at straws, like, I don't know what to do. Please let me get this. Please let me get that. The skills I've learned, I already know without having to ask them what was wrong with my application. I know that the language I was using, my lack of experience and skills within the lab environment would have been what hindered me in my application. So yeah, I'm so happy. I'm over the moon I got rejected. Otherwise, I would have been locked into a 3-year PhD doing something that really wouldn't have been for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that especially with the PhD case, and it's the same with jobs as well. But like you said at the end there, that if you had done it, it would have you would have been locked. And it's one of those things where, people say this all the time. And I think my mum even said this about revision. If you do something that you don't like, you will not enjoy it, and you won't do it as well as something that you love. And I think that's a key thing that you raised there, that if you had done this PhD and you didn't enjoy it, you would have been like, if someone asked you, oh, hey, like, is a PhD something I should do? Is it something that I would enjoy? You'd be like, no. Like, it's your whole experience and your whole opinion about it would change significantly. And I think that's, like you said, that's a key thing, that sometimes, we can have these, we want to be at this place, we want to get this job, we want to be working here, or things like that. And it's one of the life's, I guess, biggest lessons, that just because you get rejected from there, or you don't work there, or things like that, it doesn't put a limit on what you can do. It just means that, I think there's a saying that says, like, just because you get a no doesn't mean you can't go on to do, greater things. It just means that path wasn't meant for you, and you're supposed to go down a different path. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. I think that was great points there, and yeah, thank you.
And yeah, what Kem said, a PhD is a tricky one. You have to love what you're doing. But honestly, if anyone is listening who is, between first and second year, second and third year, don't waste those 4 months, that summer holiday you get, because like Kem said, she finished biomed and she didn't have the experience for whatever she wanted to apply for. And that's literally the same for me. Like, I mean, I did do work experience, but just not in a lab setting, which is what I wanted to do afterwards. So then I was a bit kind of stumped, because I was like, what can I put down? I have nothing to show. So don't waste your time. Even if it's not a paid thing, just do it for the experience. Go to your lecturers and ask them, do you need any help in your lab? Can I do something? Can I help you run experiments? Will you train me? Because then that training, like it was said earlier, I don't know, in this question or the last question, all of these skills are transferable in different parts of in different industries. Nothing's just specific. You can, all skills are transferable. So don't waste your time, basically.
Yeah. And just one last thing before we go to the next question is the idea of contacting your lecturers, because I think, like you said students will think, okay, I need to apply to work at a lab to get that experience. But you would be surprised at how many, I think people, like uni students, do forget that while your lecturer does lecture you, they do projects like in addition to that. And a lot of the time, even if you just say, I don't even want to be paid, I just want to like work in the lab over the summer, I just want the experience, so I can know, if that works something, most of the time they're just like, yeah, sure. I know one of my friends, she didn't necessarily do lab work. She wanted to specify with data. And that was one of the things she asked one of our lecturers. She was just like, I just want to use the summer to build up myself. Like, I don't really know what I do or don't like. And he said, hey, I'm doing this project. It's data set, but it will give you like a good experience. And that significantly helped her when it came to her dissertation, because obviously with COVID, that meant that for some of us, we couldn't use the labs. And she was saying that like, that's a huge benefit, because if she hadn't done that experience, the way you do your data research is completely different. Even a dissertation in itself, the way you would do data for it is completely different to how you would do it for normal coursework. And having that experience of working on an actual project that, is going to get a paper, it's going to be published, working with a lecturer and being like, okay, the whole process of this, and learning that is, it not only like gives you that experience and the transferable skills, but it also tells you about an industry that you could go into. So if you like it, you could think, I could go into academia, I could become a professor or a doctor, and I could teach my course to other people. So yeah, I think that's definitely a really good thing to highlight. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for these wonderful answers.
Thank you so much. Those answers were really good. Everyone constructed so well to those points. And for our last question, before you get to ask us the question of your choice, very scary, what is the thing or the person who inspires you in your everyday life?
So for me, I have a friend. I feel like she's extremely inspirational to me because she's not from the science community, she's from the tech community, same age as me, went to the same school as me, roughly similar background. And I just see the advancements she's been taking in the tech world. On Twitter, she's garnering quite a lot of attention from larger tech people. She is an influencer on Instagram. She has her own graphic design business. She's currently still doing uni. She's just about to finish soon. Basically, she just has a lot of things that are going in the right direction, going very well. She's a regular girl, like I said, exactly the same as me pretty much. And seeing her drive and her passion, it's like even days where she's been kicked down low, eventually she pulls herself together and she gets back on track. I feel like I personally never had a mum, so I never had that motherly figure who I could turn to and say, do you know what, she's so inspirational. So for me, my friend was pretty much that girl. I see her relationship with her mum. Her mum is very friendly with me also. I just love the whole dynamic. Even myself, when I'm feeling low, she's the person I'll talk to. She gives me that inspiration too, just encourages me to keep going. And I just feel like having friends like that is so important. I feel like it's even more so important than having someone you've never met or someone you don't know who you just maybe see on the internet that's just an inspiration to you. Because when it's so close to home, it's like I have no choice but to do well, That's
really good. Yeah. And I think that the people around us, like you were saying, they are the people that have the most effect on us. Some people say, I can tell you who you are when I look at your the three closest people to you. And I think that those people, they make you, and they make your perspectives, and they feed into your perspectives, and in a constructive way that doesn't sort of take away from you, because the people around you that can understand what you've been through, understand your history, understand where you are now, can relate to you and can speak to you with who you are, instead of just looking at someone and making a broad assumption on that. So I think that the people around me definitely inspire me a lot, and it's people like Jeffrey and Anushka are inspiring me every time we do one of these sessions, and any other time. And Anushka just did one of them, but yeah, no, it's well, for example, if Jeffrey's got some advice, anything about climate, anything about the environment, that inspires me more than it would if someone else said it, because I know Jeffrey, and Jeffrey, when someone means something to you, the inspiration comes from a place of understanding rather than a place of being told something. It's this is someone that you can synergize and get along with, and sort of share that perspective. So yeah, that's what I got from it. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think one really key thing, and thank you very much for that, Sam. That's very nice of you to say, because I think you're 100% right. And I guess there's just 2 points that I just quickly want to add to that. I just think, first off, I think you're definitely right. I guess people might be surprised to hear this, but sometimes doing the podcast stuff can be difficult, and it's people like yourselves, Nanushka as well, that just help. Having a team that enjoy it, they're supportive, they're always coming up with new ideas, and they're very creative. It's a huge motivator, because I'm just if I'm feeling like this, then you guys must be feeling like this, and if I see you guys keep on going, I'm just it's clear that we're doing something right. Also, guests like Nkem as well, they have a huge impact, because seeing these people who want to be on here is definitely something that I guess motivates me as well, and it inspires me to be if they want to have a conversation with me and they don't even know me. They've only seen maybe our bios on the website, or maybe they've seen our previous episodes or things like that, but they don't necessarily know me. And they're this supportive. It's definitely a key thing. And that links to one of my there's a proverb in the Bible that sort of says something like this, and it's very I think it's like a good life lesson for people to take. Is it says something along the lines of a really a best friend can sometimes, a best friend is closer than a brother, or things like that. But it's basically saying like a friend can be even better than a brother is to you. And I think that's just so true. And I think from what Kem said, what you said, Sam, it's clear that's the case. And you might, like I said, they don't need to be related to you by blood to necessarily inspire you and encourage you to be the best version of yourself. So yeah, I think that's amazing that you both feel that way. And thank you very much for sharing that with everyone. So yeah, wow, this has been a very, very powerful episode. Not that every episode isn't powerful, but I think we delved into some really good stuff here today. So thank you once again, everyone, for listening, and Sam, Anushka, and Kem for taking part. Now we've come to our newly added section for the episode, where we get our guest speakers to ask us questions. So Kem, over to you. Please, could you ask us the question you've prepared for us today?
So my first question is for Ninushka. Do you feel, as a woman in STEM, you have faced any prejudice, whether in a workplace setting or an educational setting?
So honestly, no. So in school, I went to a mixed school, and everyone, they didn't kind of focus on the boys as much. They were more just they focused on everybody. They gave everyone the same opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, even now, in uni when I was studying, I'm not gonna lie, I felt there were kind of more girls on my course than boys. So there was never that thing of I didn't find that there was any prejudice. And especially even now in my job, we're basically a female team. So actually I think we have 2 or 3 boys in our team, but I really haven't found anything like that, because I mean, I don't know if it'll be different when I get a new job and maybe it's a more male dominated job. But for now, because I think I'm in a very heavily female dominated job right now, I've not seen anything like that. I've not felt anything like that. So yeah, no, that's my experience. Yeah.
I think that's really lucky, just because currently, or as of 2019, only 26% of women make up the whole majority of STEM. So obviously that's not even half yet. And go back a few years ago, prior to 2019, that number wasn't even 10%. So I feel like your case is very lucky. And I think it is very important for listeners and viewers to really understand that that's not everyone's point of view. Some women go into STEM having a smooth sailing opportunity. Even myself, I've had a few angry DMs come to me and say, I've never experienced this. STEM has always been pushed at my school. I feel like it's forced down my throat almost. Stuff like that. It's like, you have to understand that you have a smooth sailing experience. Other people may not. It's the same way as I can't sit here and say every female in STEM has to suffer. They have to go through something. That's not the case. Some people do have a smooth sailing chance, an opportunity, and I think that's really important to highlight. So I'm happy to hear that. For the guys, have you yourself noticed any disparities when it comes to gender representation in your STEM workplaces, or again in an educational setting?
So I think for me, I would say currently, I mean, I feel like yes is the honest truth. Now, there could be other factors that link to that. So, like I said before, at secondary school, for my A-level physics, there was only one girl on the course. And it was just one of those things where it was kind of, it was just like it was one of the things you just knew, and it was easily identifiable. And I think she was saying that like she's passionate about physics. She loves physics. I think she went on to do engineering, or is either astrophysics or engineering. But she said she loved the topic. And then like I said, we had a discussion once about like women within STEM, and she was just saying sometimes it just feels like other people. Other women, sorry, within like especially within our school, she said, just weren't interested in that. But I think when I got to university, now the reason why I'd say it's harder there is because when I joined my course, it was the first year of our course. So our course when I joined, I was expecting like 100, 200 people, like your standard big university. I got there, it was a classroom full of like up to 20 people. And I was just like, okay, wow, even wasn't what I was expecting when I got to university. And I think there definitely were a lot more girls on my course than at my university, than like my A-level physics class. But I think there was still, the numbers were a lot closer. It definitely wasn't only one girl, but there was still a bit more boys than girls. And then you could kind of see, even with like the lecturers and teachers at secondary school as well. So like we didn't have a female physics teacher. The teacher that we had that was teaching about physics was a chemistry teacher who some of the areas in chemistry linked with physics. So, like looking at like electrodes and stuff like that, that sort of sometimes would cross over with chemistry. But with my university degree, we only had like 3 female lecturers, and we had 4, sorry, and I didn't even see them that much. And it was just one of those things where I did kind of notice it. Now, some of my friends, like I said, have gone on to graduate. Some of them, like me, did a placement years or did placements. And I've worked within like like I said, I did a placement year and a placement, summer placement. And I did start to see that depending on like where you work, there is that difference. So some organizations seem to have a wider, there's a wide variety of women. So like where I did my placement was was at Brunel. So it was within the STEM team there. And that seemed to have like the STEM sector as a whole, like encouraging students to get into STEM seemed to be a more, in my personal opinion, female oriented area than where I did my summer placement, which was within like an organization that's focused on promoting the environment. So I definitely think I did notice a disparity within representation of within like the representation within the organizations. And I think even, it's one of those things that you just kind of, well, I mean, others might differ on this. I know some people say they don't notice certain things, but I think it's just one of the things that I did notice, like even though I'm not a woman, I might not necessarily know this within all, like I said, when I look back at it, I didn't really, at the time, I didn't think about I didn't have a female physics teacher, but when you raised the question, I was just like, yeah, I actually didn't have a female physics teacher. But yeah, I think that is one of the things that you do notice. And like you said before, it's this idea of getting there early, encouraging people to think about diversifying and raising awareness, and we'll speak about the Emcee in just a bit. But I think that's organizations that do that focus on promoting, whether it's, I know, STEM learning or an organization that look at addressing that. I know that STEM Amazing is another one. There's a Women in Engineering Society at Brunel called Anovia as well. There's loads of organizations that even are doing it as well. And what I really like specifically about the one for about Anovia is on campus. So I guess some guys might think because it's like women in STEM, they won't take any like men into the society. And they say, no, actually, we do want to, allow these conversations to happen. And the only way of doing that is, have it like, not saying that these societies are like restricted to a certain group or, if you're a guy, you can't join, but allowing people to use these societies to like have these conversations and widen the gap. And also the idea of creating support networks and letting people know that like, even if it doesn't directly affect you, you're still an ally and you can use your status as an ally to help improve and better representation. So yeah, I think I definitely noticed it. I think in the recent years it's gotten better in some sectors than others. But obviously there's always a need for change. So yeah, I think that's definitely the main thing that I saw.
Nice, thanks. And yeah, for myself, those are some really good points, Jeffrey. But for myself, my undergrad wasn't a STEM subject. It was, I was doing international relations, which had a 50-50 split. But I've now moved into psychology, which is a STEM subject because it's a science. I found there that actually there's more women, and there's more women in the industries because there's more women are attracted to psychology than men are. I'm not sure why, but it generally gets more female attention there. But however, there are lessons to be learned that I've learned in psychology that actually show that, you know, in the past it wasn't always like that. In fact, it was the very opposite. So psychology has been used in the past to actually create stereotypes about women, being, you know, creating like intelligence tests and you know, there were some psychologists in the past that were men, and they were just like, you know, women aren't as intelligent and women can't do this and women can't do that. And the thing that we've learned now, and we learn in our course, in literally, like this is like literally mandatory learning, is that every single stereotype about intelligence, about capability, is so false. You know, we're humans with brains, and just because someone's a woman, just because someone's a man, doesn't mean that one person's better at doing something than another. Like, there's no, you know, like women can do STEM just as much as men can do STEM. It's about the brain. It's not like you need some sort of like, it's not like men have these like extra sensory skills where they can just like, I don't know, like do some impossible task that obviously they wrote like fantasized about in the past. But the reality is that everyone has the same capability to do anything. And so people being pushed out of industries because of stereotypes and everything like that, it's just, we've learned from the past so many times that stereotypes are stupid. They're literally always wrong. They're all fake. They're all made by some institution or some sort of strange confronted worldview where people have just been caught in this echo chamber where they've been able to come up with these scientific experiments which have, you know, or anything that's led them to believe certain things. So I think that, you know, in STEM, in definitely the psychology place, there's more women in psychology, but we've learned in the past where it was just men that actually it was used as a tool to stop women becoming more liberated and more responsible for their own lives by people saying like, not as intelligent, can't have this job, can't do this, can't do that. And every single time it's been absolutely fake, and it's a massive issue, and it continues today in so many different ways. Maybe there's a lot of ways that it's, you know, thankfully it's completely reverted and gone round, and, you know, everyone said like, no, that's not true, everyone's got an equal opportunity, but it still remains in so many ways. And like you're saying, like you can experience issues where, you know, someone, you know, could be a group project as kids, could start from kids. I don't know if this conversation we had was recorded. It was one of our non-recorded sessions, but it was, you know, those people coming up with those stereotypes, just like, oh, you know, the girl in the group, you know, her perspective doesn't matter as much because she's a woman, she won't be as good at it. Like, that's completely not true. Like, these are humans with brains, and just because like one of them's a man and one of them's a female doesn't make them any better. So that's 100% what, you know, I've found working in STEM, and that's using science to undo what science was used for to sort of suppress. It's been undone, which is very, very fortunate. And luckily I learn about that, and everyone in my class learns about that. I think also just going on about like experiencing people who are dismissive of their pain or their experiences, and, you know, like you were saying, like some people will say like, will message you saying like, I haven't experienced that, or maybe they're a man, they say like, oh, this doesn't exist in my industry or whatever. But if someone says they're being discriminated against, or they feel discriminated against, being discriminated against isn't a perspective, it's a reality for so many people. And so to be that identity is different from just hearing about it or saying like, you know, like, I hear this happens or like that. It's like when you're living it, it's a very different thing. It's on your back. There's no like, you can't detach from it and like, oh, this is, you know, we're analyzing what happens here. It's like, it's very much being experienced, which makes it 10 times worse than you can even imagine, because you're not there experiencing something that you can't get away from. You can't just say like, oh, I want time out. Like it's who you are and it's what's happening to you. So discrimination in every industry or social setting needs to be eradicated. And if people like dismiss people's perspectives or their experiences, then, you know, dismissing the pain of others means that we can't progress to somewhere where we take everyone's experiences and move onwards into more equality and being able to recognize those. And it's really hard for some people if they haven't experienced it, but it you know, like that's why you just need to, like, for anyone out there that finds it hard to say like, okay, people are saying they experience discrimination, but I don't think it affects me, or I've never seen it, or whatever. Just like you won't see it sometimes unless you are it, because it's so woven into like your version of normality that you don't realize what an effect it can have on someone else. So I think taking that from psychology and from that STEM industry, I would say that's my experience of it.
You know what I find really interesting about what you said is that growing up, I feel like I was constantly told women are more emotional than men. And then reaching a point where I found that that's not really the case. It is potentially true that women can express their emotions more than men, but they're not subject to feeling more emotions than men do. It particularly alienated me because, as you are probably very well aware, there are different personality types, and I'm more of a logical thinker. So when it comes to making decisions, my emotions don't affect the way that I think. I logically look at a situation. I can literally be so upset, so angry, but I'm still going to logically think through those things. Both men and women can behave like that, but because growing up, I literally thought, no, but women, you know, they're the more empathic out of the two. They're the more, you know, in anger, they might make the wrong decision. It made me feel like I was kind of wrong, almost, even though that's a very valid way of thinking. Both ways are very valid ways of thinking. Even in me being a logical thinker, I see advantages and disadvantages in it. So, for example, I'm the type of friends my friends would come to for reasonable advice. Like, they can be in hysterics and I'd be like, do you know what? Obviously, calm down. I try my best to help them emotionally, but they've come to me for a solution. Whereas maybe other friends would be better to go to for, you know, consoling and things like that. So just that that stereotype did, I feel like, negatively impact me. Like, I just felt like I wasn't like other girls. And then growing up, realizing loads of girls are like me. Loads of girls don't necessarily have that nurturing side, and they do just think things through with just the facts as opposed to how you feel. So yeah, I find that very interesting.
I think a big issue as well is that if men aren't as emotional and women are more emotional, like that's seen as like that's okay. And then as soon as someone goes against that sort of culturally accepted way of being, people are just like, well, you know, you don't fit. Like, they're sort of just like, doesn't. It's almost like we were saying about like seeing a male nurse. Like, some people like when kids see that, they're like, what? That's not how I imagined it. And like, it's, you know, it's not about how someone imagines something. This is a socially constructed way of thinking, and it's not the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. What both of you were saying, and I think there's, like, I know we're specifically talking about women representation in STEM, but I think, like what you were saying, Kem, about the idea of, you know, men are seen as, you know, not being necessarily emotional thinkers. They're the ones that will think logically. They'll see a solution, be like, this is how we do. That's not the case. And, you know, I think, like you said, it's just the understanding of there's more. And I think, like you were saying about like personality traits, and that's why I think, I know I wouldn't say most. I know some organizations, and I was lucky enough to do it when I was on placement, do I don't know which one it was, but it was the personality test where you get like E, S, T, J, or like the different ones where it says like you're emotional or you're logical, you're a thinker, or things like that, basically. But even like that, like that can be a really good thing because it tells you about who you are. So one of the like really key interesting things that I learned from that was the person who was essentially like my buddy for the placement. So the person who worked at the organization and was looking after me, she had the exact same personality trait as me. And that might have been why we got along quite well. You know, it meant that like when we like if we were going to do work, like if she gave me a task to do and she wanted to just check that I was doing okay, we were coming up with like similar solutions. But then it was also good because I got to see the other people in my office, what theirs was and why they would also, when it came to like decision making on things or like ways to address certain issues that might have come up in work. So like if there was a task and something then came up, knowing that was also key because it meant that we could come at it in different ways. And I think that's one of the things that people seem to forget when it comes about diversifying industries. And like Sam said, these stereotypes don't have any factual like there's no facts to it. You know, there's the people who say that people of color, specifically black people, are dumb, and there's no facts to it. There's no facts to it. There's no facts that support that. Or even if they do, you know, say, oh, there is that one paper. I think there was a TED talk that I was watching about this doctor that was saying the same thing, that there are doctors that were like there were news articles that say, oh, you know, there are like 15 papers that say like apples can lead to an increase in heart disease. I'm not saying there are, but like, for example, he was saying like something like that. And then he was saying, and then I can give you like 300 and something that show actually this is not the case. This is something else. And I think, like you were saying, that diversifying these industries, people think that when you try to, you know, be an ally and say we need more representation, whether it's of color or of you know, of women or men in certain not genders, in certain industries, people sort of feel like you're just pushing something, like pushing an agenda, but you're not. You're trying to diversify the place and make it more welcoming. And, you know, having diversity does help with problem solving. It allows you to see things in a different way. And then lastly, to just say is I think it's key to note that, like for anyone listening, now obviously I mean I'll be a woman in STEM, but you've heard from 2 women in STEM today. And it's key to see that, you know, they didn't let that limit them, you know, that they didn't let any stereotypes limit them. And, you know, you've heard previously that our previous speakers, even the, you know, myself, Sam and Anushka, we've had different, you know, scenarios in life where we haven't let that be the limiter. And, you know, if anyone who's listening, who's unsure about whether, you know, what to do or where they want to go to, please, like, think about, especially when it comes to like university, just think about what you want to do, because you shouldn't do something, like I said before, that you don't enjoy. Do what you enjoy, and yeah, don't stress about it. But yeah, that nicely leads us on to our Emcee of the month. So our Emcee of the month for this episode is now I'm probably like I've warned the others about this before. I probably will get the name wrong, but we will have the name on the website, and the name will probably pop up right now. I'm like putting my hands here to show it'll pop up here. Hopefully it does. Called I think they're called Stemites. Yeah, just like it's gonna pop up here. But yeah, they're called Stemites, and basically they're this organization that focus solely on like promoting women in STEM. The story, I honestly I can't go into too much detail, you know, for today because of time, but it essentially started out as something that was wanted to like tackle the lack of women in STEM in a completely different way. And their founder, her name is Dr. Anne-Marie Imafidon. She's got an MBE from the Queen, and she like, even her story itself is just amazing. She received her master's in mathematics and computer science from the age of 20. Age 11, she was the youngest girl to pass her A-level not her A-level computing, but A-level computing in general. So, you know, that's a clearly inspirational story. And yeah, as an organization that she's now in charge of, they do a number of events. And I think now, because everything's been online, they've been, you know, continuing this because they want to spotlight the idea of improving, this lack of representation of women in STEM, and getting young people on this idea of, you can do STEM whether you're a girl or not. You shouldn't feel that your gender or your race or anything like that limits you. Even on their website, they decided that they want to, encourage, and there's loads of things on there. There's loads of resources on there. So if you wanted to take one specific to your organization, you can take it. And one key thing I just want to point out on their website is this. They say diversity is important in any industry, and STEM especially. Diversity of thought leads to innovation. And I think that's a perfect way to end this episode. So I guess I just want to say a big thank you to Nkem for being on the podcast. We've honestly loved this episode, and I think we might have had ideas of how this was going to go, but I don't think we saw it being as insightful and as inspirational as it went today. So I want to just say thank you very much for being on the podcast. We really do appreciate it. We want to say a big thanks to all our listeners. As always, you guys bring us our smiles in the morning. It's always nice to see you guys participating and listening to the podcast. And even sometimes I know you might not necessarily put it on social media, but when I do speak to some of you that have listened to the episodes, it is quite nice to know that it has inspired you on a personal level. And I hope that not only our Emcee, but also Nkem and her story has inspired you today. So yeah, thank you everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. And yeah, keep an eye out for our next episode.